to private again. Excellent connection, it's gone back to private. Okay, saying excellent connection. It's probably going to shut down again in a minute through not enough video or some such. But okay, I seem to have some sound anyway. So let's turn that down a bit to stop it echoing. So how the hell do I turn on? Chat? It's saying it's private at the moment. I've got no idea if this is going out or not. Edit. Okay, hang on. I might edit that. Okay. Yep. So if I come down here and then go public, done. Save. Okay, so now this should be going out. Live. Welcome to live chat. Remember to guard your privacy. Okay, learn more. Say something. How do I turn on the live chat then? Create a poll. Concurrent views. Okay, I've got the banner again saying that they're not receiving enough video, but I'm going to take it that it's because it's a fixed image. They're not really getting much of a stream with regard to the video, but it seemed to work okay, even though that banner appeared before. I don't know if anyone out there's used OBS or knows anything about this bloody thing, but it looks a bit tedious. Okay. Well, I can't see any test 77. Okay, so I'll put that in the. Okay. Well, I can't see anything that sort of lets me turn on or off the chat, so I don't know whether anyone out there can see the chat. Maybe you could chuck, if you can, maybe you could chuck a comment in there and just let me know if you can see it. Thanks for the feedback. I've turned the audio down on the mic, so that should be better. Yeah, is there anyone out there that can see? This would be so easy to do if I just wanted to use the camera in the computer, and I just didn't want to do that. All I wanted was the avatar and the microphone, and there's nothing on YouTube that shows you how to do that simple thing. So okay, learn more. All right, what's this? Network tips, get started live streaming, moderate live chat. Is there anyone out there that can see if there's a live, can tell me if there's a, can just type something in the live chat box if it's there? I can't, oh, hang on a sec, I'll go up here, it's going to tell me if anyone's watching. Live, 3.5 minutes. It's not telling me that anybody's watching. It's saying there's an error there. Average view duration 3 minutes 33. So somebody's, is that somebody watching? God, this is so frustrating, this bloody software, I'll tell you what. It's got so many options on it. I mean, all I want is the microphone and the avatar. That's it. Why is it so hard just to get the avatar and the microphone? Top chat. Oh, okay. Has that turned it on? Some messages such as potential spam may not be visible. Okay. All right. Is there anybody out there that can see the chat box and could just type something into the chat box for me, just to let me know if that's working? I think I might give this up as a bad job and just go back to doing the videos like I used to. What's this? Create what? No. Yeah, okay, so pin message, remove, right. Okay, so I've got no idea whether this is working or not. Is this working? 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 4 5 or 1 2 3 4 5. Yeah, how do I turn on the bloody chat? It looks like it's good to go. Maybe there's just nobody watching. Which is probably highly likely, come to think of it. Alright, well this is the longest test I've done. It's over 6 minutes. I want to stop this and I'll go back to the video and see if getting this banner up here telling me that YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming as such. Poor error, not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. Viewers will experience buffering. Please check video resolution. The current resolution is, oh god, stream current bitrate is, it is higher than the recommended bitrate. We recommend that you use a stream bitrate of 1000, okay? 1000 kilobits per second. YouTube is not receiving enough. Warning, please check the video resolution. So it's telling me that the video resolution is not optimal, and then it's telling me that I can see some messages. Proselytizing Orthodox Pentecostal Angora rabbit. Video looks fine to me. Oh, a bit of an echo. Okay, hang on. Okay. How's that? That should have got rid of the echo. Is that good? So even though I'm getting all these warnings, it's still going out okay, is it? Still echo, okay. How's the level? Is it still too loud? Not a bad echo. Still echo. Alright. I've just turned the level down. I think that's probably going to be a setting in the back in the OBS. Oh, okay. All right. Well, thanks very much for the feedback there, Rabbit. That's the first time I've actually done this and seen something on the screen. Got some audio and video. I had no idea there was actually audio on the previous test that I did. So that's very helpful. Thanks very much. Volume's fine. People can always turn their volume down. Yeah, okay. Well, thanks a lot. So I'm getting heaps of warnings here about streaming not being right. It's not set to optimum. Not enough video to maintain smooth streaming, but it sort of looks and sounds good enough by what you're saying there, I think. Okay, is there anyone else out there, I wonder? Maybe keep it going for a little bit. I don't know if anyone saw there's a Oh, actually, no, I know what one of the topics I was going to talk about was the 1,500-page FOI request submitted by the Sun newspaper to get all the information about the ATIP project and the UFOs and all that sort of stuff, and Luis Elizondo, etc. I don't know what any of that is, but it looks okay to me. Yeah, okay. All right. Well, if it's just an image of me and you can hear my voice and it's not distorted and you can hear what I'm saying, that's probably working good enough. But yeah, recently, I don't know if you noticed on Ben's channel recently, he did a video about this 1,500-page freedom of information. There was a freedom of information request submitted by the Sun newspaper to the Pentagon or whoever you submit it to get all the information they had on ATIP. And the Sun newspaper sent them 1,500 pages of information, none of which they published, unfortunately, which sort of tells me that there's not really much there that's going to be worth looking at. Yeah, still an echo. Maybe I should try and get hold of another computer so I can actually monitor it and then play around with it and see what on earth is going on. Hang on, if I go into this, what's this? If I go to that, what about if I do that? Has the echo gone or has the sound gone? Is the sound still there? Aha. Okay, so there was 2 audio channels shown on this blooming OBS thing, and I've just turned one of them down. So I wonder if the microphone is set to stereo and there's some sort of delay between the channels or something. Okay, so now there's no echo in the audio quality and the level's okay, is it? Yeah, okay. Righto. All right. Well, yeah. Well, Ben usually does a video every year saying that it's going to be the year of disclosure. I think this year was a little different. I think his video this year said that 2022 won't be the year of disclosure, so it's probably going to be the first time he's actually got it right. But yeah, there was a thing that the the UFO program that was running, the ATIP program, and that guy Luis Elizondo have you heard of Luis Elizondo, Rabbit? Oh, Clueless is there as well. Evening, Clueless. Well, hello. You know, you sound that when you reading that reminds me of, there used to be a television commercial years and years ago in the UK, and on that commercial was Clifford the Dragon. Do you remember that? And Clifford the Dragon always used to say, "Hello." Okay, well, I thought you were up on all this UFO stuff, Rabbit. But there's a guy called Luis Elizondo, and he's been appearing on several of the channels. He was involved with the TTSA. He left the Pentagon some time ago. He was the guy that apparently arranged for the release of those 3 videos that supposedly show some unusual craft. The ones that have been pretty thoroughly debunked by almost everybody. But apparently he left the Pentagon program. Oh, yeah, that was probably it. The Listerine Dragon, Clifford, yeah. Clifford the Listerine. I couldn't remember what the advert was for, but Clifford the Listerine Dragon. Yeah, crikey. I haven't seen that advert since I left the UK, about 27 years ago. But yeah, the whole story with Luis Elizondo doesn't make sense to me, because he supposedly was running this government UFO project. Yeah, okay, more into conspiracy theories than UFOs. Okay, fair enough, Rabbit. No worries, mate. My primary interest is ET, and are we really being visited? Is there actually any evidence that we are being visited by extraterrestrials? That's my sort of primary interest. There's lots and lots of people out there that say, "Oh yeah, it's happening." I mean, people like Steve Bassett say, "Oh yeah, well, we know this is happening as fact." Well, I haven't seen any evidence to support that. I mean, there's quite a lot of stories out there. And there's quite a lot of fuzzy pictures, but I haven't seen anything at all that I considered good evidence for ET visitation. Now, this particular chap, Luis Elizondo, he left this Pentagon project supposedly so he could come out into the sort of mainstream, if you like. He wouldn't be limited by his governmental contracts. So that he could do UFO research. And I thought, well, that makes no sense at all, because the best place, if you're seriously into UFO research, the best place to be doing it is in a government department specifically tasked with looking at UFOs. And to actually leave that, step out of that, and obviously the best department investigating UFOs on the face of the earth is probably going to be in America, based in the Pentagon. Now, why you would step out of that to go to the TTSA or to go on YouTube and start talking about this is beyond me, because he's not going to have access to all this classified information, is he? But it used to be called ATIP, this advanced, whatever it was, basically the Pentagon's UFO program. Now, it's still going without Elizondo, but now it's actually called ARSO, believe it or not. ARSO. Now, as in pain in thee, Now, I reckon that, and that stands for the Anomaly, Surveillance and Resolution Office. Well, did he fall or was he pushed? Nobody really knows. An exception of Sweetie Benny Handles, I think that all these ufologists are playing cover for people and gun trafficking money laundering. Yeah. I think there's certainly an awful lot of generating UFO stories to make money out of it. I think that's pretty much what the TTSA was all about. I think it was send us your money and we'll build a starship, wasn't it, the TTSA? But apparently this thing they've got going at the Pentagon now, this department that's looking into unidentified flying objects, is called the Anomaly, Surveillance and Resolution Office, or ARSO. Now, they probably decided to call it ARSO because they probably thought nobody in their right mind is going to submit a Freedom of Information Act request for everything and anything relating to ARSO. No one could probably bring themselves to be able to do that. Now, whether or not that's the case, but the Anomaly, Surveillance and Resolution Office sort of suggests that they're going to be looking at these things, doesn't it? Anomaly surveillance. And resolution seems to be that they're determined to find out what they actually are. They need to resolve what these things are. So maybe we'll be hearing something from ARSO in the not too distant future. But certainly Luis Elizondo moving out into the civilian world so that he can talk about work with interesting ET sightings or military sightings and all this sort of stuff doesn't seem to have worked, does it? Because all he seems to do when he's interviewed is tell people that he can't tell them anything. Well, I can't talk about that, and someone will say to him, well, have you seen something that you know for sure is extraterrestrial? And he'll say, well, I can't really say, the whole thing's pointless. So I don't know why people bother interviewing this guy. And certainly if he wanted to investigate it seriously, he's far better off inside the Pentagon than outside. Yeah, that's true. I'll write a book about it. Oh yeah, Nick Pope. Nick Pope. Yeah, the other thing, what was that guy? What was that guy in House of Cards? You know, Farquhar. And his favourite line was, "You might like to think so. I couldn't possibly comment." I can't remember his first name, but it wasn't something Urquhart, wasn't it? Wasn't his initials were FU, weren't they? Something Urquhart. So that's the favourite comment, isn't it? You know, you might like to think so, but I couldn't possibly comment. Well, the whole thing's a waste of time, really, isn't it? Excuse me. So, yeah. Well, I think that whole TTSA thing and the you know, the Skinwalker Ranch and all that sort of stuff, it was just a huge money making thing. I don't think there was any serious stuff done there. I mean, how long did they spend at the Skinwalker Ranch? And the best image they could come up with was a cribbed image of a creature from a B movie from the 80s, I think it was, called Extra, which is obviously someone walking on their hands and feet with their, you know, facing upwards, if you can imagine that, sort of horizontally. So it looked a bit odd, with a mask on the back of their head. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So yeah, the more I look into this, the less I find. I wonder if you find the same thing. If you're looking into this whole UFO business, and there are certain names that crop up time and time again, and you think they're just grifting a living off it, you know, rather than doing any serious research. Obviously, that's not the case with Ben. He doesn't make any money out of it, as far as I can see. But he's a bit of a fanboy. I think that's the bottom line with Ben. Unfortunately, he doesn't do any serious research. He'll just like the sound of a story and then run with it. Skinwalker. I thought you were into conspiracies, Rabbit. Just Google it. It was something to do with Bigelow Aerospace and this ranch, and they had these crypto critters running around. Or not, because there wasn't any actual evidence of any of that sort of stuff. But it's been going on for years, this Skinwalker Ranch, and nonsense, and that's what it is. It's just nonsense. Zero evidence for any of the stuff they're talking about. On another topic, I was looking at the nice drop-off point. Yeah, there's going to be books and DVDs and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, it's just another. Maybe I should come up with something like that. You know, maybe I should come up with a story about being abducted and write a book about it. You know, a bit like Whitley Strieber. Whitley Strieber, I think his conscience was getting to him a little bit, because he was always saying, "Well, that's what I think happened to me. You know, you tell me what happened to me." And I think it was, who was it that was pointing out? It was Charles pointing out the other day that the aliens, I think, that were used in the Whitley Strieber story were they've been around for about 200 years in science fiction. No idea how many conspiracy theories there are, that's for sure. Coke pilot had Area 51. Yeah, okay. The Coke pilot had Area 51 in his flight manifest. Yeah, well, so what does that mean? Does that mean that Kenneth Arnold actually saw dope smugglers when he saw his 6 or 7 flying saucers skipping across, or crescent-shaped craft skipping across the sky like saucers? Gone enigmatic in reaction to the growing mass of disbelief. Doesn't matter though, does it? Because he's made his money. It doesn't matter how many people say it's rubbish and how many people don't believe him, because it was at best. How long was it on the bestseller list? That Communion. He's made a pile of money out. I'll tell you what. If he got really depressed, he could climb up on top of his pile of money and throw himself off. I've got another warning come up, but never mind. If it's working, I'll worry about that later on. no, there won't be any disclosure. There's nothing to disclose, I think is the bottom line. I mean, why wouldn't an alien spacecraft just fly over a city if they're really here? And so that it'd be on every television channel, for all over the world. If they're really here, why don't they do that? Ben will say, oh yeah, well they did, it was the Phoenix Lights, but there's no video of a spacecraft, is there? I'm talking about a tangible spacecraft, and get some video of a tangible spacecraft, and you'll be able to tell by looking at it. Chances are it would have some sort of if an alien spacecraft turned up, first of all, I think it's not going to be spewing radiation all over the place. I think aliens that got the technology to get here are certainly going to have the technology to know how to deal with radiation. They're not going to be spewing radiation. So going around looking for landing sites with Geiger counters would be a complete waste of time. I don't think that going around supposed UFO landing sites or crash sites with metal detectors would be of any use whatsoever, because I don't think there will be any metal whatsoever in an alien spacecraft. I think it would be made of all sorts of super exotic, low mass synthetic materials, that we can't even imagine yet. Graphene is probably just the start of these super exotic materials, where it sort of weighs nothing at all, 20 times stronger than steel and all that sort of stuff. It's going to be that sort of thing, there's not going to be any metal in it. Not I just can't imagine it. But I was a little surprised to see this morning that they're talking about this BITG project, this Beacon in the Galaxy project, and apparently we're going to be, back in 1974 we beamed this high power signal. It was about 30 terawatts. It was beamed from Arecibo towards a distant star system, some 25,000 light years away. And they're sort of revamping that. They've updated it, and they're going to do it again. Now, they're going to be using that huge 500-meter dish that the Chinese have built, and they're also going to be doing it from the Allen Array in California. And I'm really surprised that Seth Shostak and all those guys would be interested in actually broadcasting messages out to aliens. Now, it doesn't say it doesn't actually say when they're going to do it, but as far as I knew, SETI were just, let's sit back and listen and see what happens. They weren't really in favour of this broadcasting signals out to potential alien civilizations, and what they're using is a really simple technique. They're just going to point the antennas at the centre of the galaxy, which is where the chances of you hitting the most stars is just point your radio beam at the centre of the galaxy, and you're going to get the most stars that you can possibly capture in that beam. I thought initially when I read it that maybe the James Webb had spotted a couple of good candidate systems, and they were going to beam the signal at those, but apparently not. They're going to just beam it at the centre of the galaxy. And they're going to be using an awful lot of power, and they're going to be doing it on a strange frequency as well. They're going to be doing it on 2.380 gigahertz microwave frequency, but it's outside of what's known as the water hole. I'm sure you guys have heard of the water hole. I'm sure Clueless has certainly heard of it. If you look at the radio spectrum, the bottom part of the microwave radio spectrum, you've got all the hydrogen atoms rattling around at 1.42 gigahertz, and you've got the hydroxyl rattling around at 1.6, 1.612 gigahertz. There's a few more digits in there, but that's close enough for this chat. So if you can imagine just looking at, you probably looked at, if you could imagine a sort of spectrum analyzer looking at the radio noise floor, it dips down. There's a bit of a dip in the noise around that area, and you've got the two bookends. One is the hydrogen line, the other one is the hydroxyl line. And between 1.4 and 1.6 gigahertz is where SETI have been looking. There's been a lot of people looking in there because they think it'd be a good water hole. You know, if an alien civilization wanted to attract attention to itself, stick a signal in there, and somebody is going to notice it. And for that reason, there's no one on Earth is allowed to transmit anything in that window. Now they're going to be using 2.380 gigahertz, which is outside of that window. It's also not a multiple of either the hydrogen, the 1.4 gig or the 1.6 gig hydroxyl frequencies. So it's a bit odd that they would choose that. The article didn't say why they chose that, how much power they're going to use, when they're going to do it, etc., etc. But part of the message is they are pinpointing Earth's position. Well, yeah. Well, we won't be zapping anybody, even with 30 terawatts. You know, the signal will be big enough to listen to on a transistor radio, or if you were sitting on a planet going around Proxima Centauri. But it's not going to fry anything. Yeah, the signal will just continue to go across the galaxy. I don't know how long they're going to do it for, because obviously they're going to have to be looking. But you know, civilizations that are going to be, well, how far away is the centre of the galaxy? What is it, 75,000 light years? So I don't think it's anything we're going to have to worry about. If they're pinpointing Earth using pulsars. So if we had a Starfleet, we could navigate around the galaxy using pulsars. We've got these natural navigation beacons just sitting all over the galaxy. And even back in 1974, they pinpointed Earth's position in the solar system using pulsars. So an intelligent civilization will be able to look at the pulsars and say, okay, this is where the signals from these pulsars converge at these angles, whatever it is. That's where the planet is. Now, Stephen Hawking thought that was a really bad idea, and so do a lot of other people. And I'm not sure it's a good idea either, because you know the old Fermi paradox. You know, if the galaxy's teeming with life, why can't we hear them? Why can't we detect them? And well, we've been broadcasting our ignorance across the galaxy for quite some time. I mean, if you look at some of the TV programs, the thing is though that not a lot of it would be detectable. We've only been generating signals that would be detectable for about 100 years. So out to a distance of about 100 light years, beyond that, no one's going to know we're here. And the other thing too, of course, is that if you had a civilization that's 200 light years away, and they're at the same level of technology as us, they wouldn't know about us, and we wouldn't know about them for another 100 years, and they could be sitting there doing exactly what we're doing now. And that's pretty close. I mean, 100 light years is probably your galactic back garden. So these big signals that they used to use from Arecibo for planet mapping, believe it or not, you could actually bounce pulses off planets. It was so powerful. Those sort of signals will go across the galaxy. Most television transmissions won't. UHF television transmissions, when we used to do big analog UHF television broadcasting, very high power, radiated powers over 1 million watts, but it was angled, the actual radiation angle from the antennas wasn't up and out away from the planet, you know, to make sure you could watch Neighbours and Coronation Street and that sort of stuff with good picture quality. All that power was sort of concentrated. So if you could imagine an apple is the radiation pattern from the television transmitter antenna. Okay, it's a big sphere. You can design antennas so that they get that energy, all of that energy, and they can squash it down so that none of it would go above horizontal. And normally they're pretty high up, so it'd probably be angled slightly downwards towards the horizon. And what that does is, if you can imagine that apple was actually a balloon full of water, and you squeeze it from the top, you push it down, the balloon spreads out, and that's exactly what happens with the radiation pattern from the antennas. So you can use all that power, but you tend to you squash it down because you want as many people to get as good a picture as possible. So not much of that signal was actually radiating out into space. Uplinks for satellite television, they're not hugely powerful. So they go up to the satellites. Of course, you know, they don't stop there. They continue on. They go past the satellites. But they're not really big signals. Someone's going to have to be looking specifically for something like that to be able to detect something like that. Whereas the signal that they broadcast in 1974, and the one they're talking about doing now, will be sticking out like a sore thumb. Hence the, what do they call it? The beacon in the galaxy project. So it'd be shining out like a big beacon. It'd be hard to miss for apparently for any technologically advanced civilization. Yeah, building a Faraday cage around Jupiter's orbit. Yeah, it's an interesting. It'd be good to get the contract for that, wouldn't it? I could, if I could get a signature for that one, I could retire tomorrow. It'd be really good. Another interesting thing, you know, you get a lot of these people, they say, oh, you know, you can't get these signals across space and all this sort of stuff, and then especially the Apollo Muppets, you know, you can't get television pictures from the moon. But if you think about the Voyager spacecraft, they're still getting telemetry from the Voyager spacecraft, which is now outside the solar system. I think both of them are now. Travelling at 186,000 miles per second, the radio signals take over a day to get here. That's how far away they are, those spacecraft. And the transmitter power on those spacecraft was initially, when they were launched, about 20 watts, and powered by little radiothermic generators, nuclear powered. But you know, it's all decaying away. There's not much power there, and they're down to about 6 watts. So with 6 watts of power, they're transmitting their telemetry signals all the way back from outside of the solar system to the deep space network here on Earth. So it's quite amazing, I think. But you saying that, Clueless, about building a Faraday cage around Jupiter's orbit. I was watching some of this Dyson Sphere stuff. You know, you've probably heard of those things. And I thought, well, you know, an alien species gets so advanced that it can build a sphere around its star and capture all the energy from that star. Well, I thought, well, how big is the sphere? I mean, if you built a sphere around the sun, it'd be pretty dark here on Earth, wouldn't it? I suppose you'd have to somehow artificially illuminate the planet. So I thought, it just doesn't make sense to me. There must be something. I haven't read up on Dyson spheres, but they're probably not completely encapsulating the star, I would suspect. Oh yeah, but just getting back to the radio stuff. So all your AM broadcasting, that's not going to go outside of the planet, not by very far anyway, if it does at all, because the ionosphere tends to reflect the longer wavelengths. I mean, once you get up into VHF and microwave frequencies, then the ionosphere is pretty transparent to those. But frequencies below that, which is where most of the broadcasting is, you're not going to get much radiating out from the planet. Not like you know, in the movie Contact, is it, where it starts off with all the radio chatter and the right outside of the galaxy. Or yeah, you wouldn't actually hear any of that too far from the planet. FM broadcasting, higher frequency, that probably leak out a little bit, but again, it's not aimed outwards. That normally has that radiation pattern where they'll beam the energy down towards the horizon because it pushes it out. Gives a much better signal over the area they want to capture. So not much of that goes out into space. Now this you might find interesting. Hoovers. I hate this Hoover's hovers. Not quite sure what that means. Eventual fusion age will be a step forward for us as a species. I think you're absolutely right, Clueless. I think it will be. That's the future of power fusion. I mean, they're building that ITER, aren't they, in Europe everyone's putting in about $10 billion. It's going to be a huge thing. And I think I saw recently that somebody's actually maintained the fusion for 5 seconds, which doesn't sound very much, but I mean they've been doing microseconds, and it was milliseconds, and they're gradually getting there. But fusion power certainly is the way of the future. I don't know whether if you actually had a starship powered by fusion, whether you could actually find enough hydrogen floating around out in space. It's the most abundant, the most abundant stuff in the galaxy, isn't it? Hydrogen. So whether you could find some and just use it as fuel as you were travelling around, whether you could actually, I doubt you could sort of milk it off of stars, as has been suggested by some YouTube videos. You'd have to go at night, of course, otherwise it'd be too hot. You might damage the spacecraft, mightn't you? Oh yeah, so once you start getting sort of up above 100 megahertz, and 100 megahertz plus, and then you get up into the microwave frequencies, then it will radiate out from the planet, but they become quite directional. So again, you might have a reasonably powerful beam, but unless the planet is in the beam, they're not going to hear it. So it's all really, it's a real hit and miss thing. Yeah, well, you may be right. They might be on the cusp of getting it all sorted out, but this is why they're interested in going back to the moon, of course, for the helium-3. Apparently, it's a super fuel for fusion reactors. This helium-3, and the moon is covered in it. You don't find it on Earth because it's sprayed out by the sun. It sticks all over the moon. But our atmosphere, ionosphere, etc., protects us from it. It doesn't come through any of that. So you don't find it here on Earth. So that's why they want to get back there and stick their flags on the moon so they can stake out their mining claims. So our current energy intensity of broadcast is nothing to worry about. Yeah, well, yeah. Being on the internet is going to be completely undetectable. That's as far as aliens are concerned, unless, of course, they're in a seedy motel. They might have landed in some remote part of Australia, and they might look similar to us. They might put a hat on with a few corks around it, book into a local bush hotel in Australia. I don't know if you ever stayed in one of those, but some of them leave a lot to be desired. I mean, they could spend a couple of days in one of those motels and get more than enough DNA samples to keep their boss happy. That's for sure. Helium-3 makes... Yes, it does. Yeah, that's right. Exactly right. And you'll probably find that Musk will be looking at it as well. So he'll be looking at putting something up there and probably flogging the stuff to anyone that wants to buy it. But I suppose the Americans can get up there and sort of claim it for their patch anyway, for the American government. I'm surprised the Russians aren't putting a bit more effort into that, to be honest. The Chinese and the Indians, I think, are sort of thinking about it, aren't they? They're wanting to get some sort of moon base going. Yeah, whether I'll see it or not, I don't know. I'm sort of knocking on a bit now. Whether it'll be in my lifetime, when they're actually running helium-3 reactors, who knows? But anyway, there are different designs for these fusion reactors. One of them was actually used for in one of the Star Trek movies. When Scotty and Kirk are arguing in the engine room of the Enterprise, of the new Enterprise. They're actually standing in one of those one of those fusion power research establishments. excuse me, where they get a load of lasers and they concentrate it down on a couple of hydrogen atoms or something. They try and fuse them together. But I think probably the most realistic way of doing it is going to be with this sort of tokamak type design. Absolutely crazy stuff. I saw this German physicist being interviewed, and he was a stereotypical German physicist. You know, he sort of got the muzzy hair, and they come off a conveyor belt, and they all goes, "Oh yes, the rotating magnetic field." They always say sort of stuff like that. Like the particles are held, and because you can't generate the sort of pressure to fuse the hydrogen atoms together that you get on the sun, you know how the sun works. They've got to do it with temperature instead. And so that it's actually hotter than the sun inside these toroidal tokamak things. And 15, yeah, once World War III is over, we'll be back to coal, mate. The ones that are left. There won't be any technology, that's for sure. If you got an old valve radio, put it in a metal dustbin and ground the dustbin. But this guy was being interviewed, and he said, "Oh yeah, because we can't get these sort of pressures here, so we have to use temperature. So we have to heat this. We have to heat hydrogen up to 15 million degrees centigrade, which is really quite warm." And I thought, yeah, well, that's the sort of understatement of the century, isn't it? Really, 15 million degrees centigrade is really quite warm. Yeah, that was quite interesting. I'm pretty sure the ITER thing they're building, however you pronounce it, in Europe at the moment, is going to be one of these big toroids. So yeah, they'll get it sorted. Whether you could actually generate enough power to power a starship, something that would actually, if it was going to bend or warp space. Yeah, I think that's something else entirely. 200 years will probably tell the tale. Yeah. So I suppose they stand inside there wearing a tinfoil suit and just guide the plasma around the tokamak. It's probably going to be the way to do that. Been in World War III since 1989. Well, yeah. Well, let's hope it doesn't go beyond. If it does go nuclear, it doesn't go beyond tactical. Once that sort of thing starts, though, somebody is going to give Putin a 5 kiloton enema, and then that'll be that. Be all over. But I was watching something on YouTube the other day. I had no idea this was going on, and that was that something like 8 of the oligarchs have died since the Ukraine invasion. The people that are involved in the big money oil and gas stuff in Russia have died. A couple of them fallen out of windows from high buildings. One of them shot his pregnant wife and his teenage daughter and himself. There was another one a couple of days ago that killed himself. So I think there'll be an awful lot of pressure within Russia, because they would have been leading really good lives with their super yachts that are all getting impounded, and sending their kids to the best schools in the UK and all this sort of stuff, and all that's come to an end. And they were probably all whinging and bleating at him, which is why they're falling out of windows at an alarming rate. But I think there might be cooler heads that don't want to get fried, that might remove him before it actually got that far down the nuclear path. Down the nuclear path with a bit of luck, anyway. I suppose you could always stock up with iodine capsules and get yourself some tin foil. It will go nuclear, and it will be localised and conventional in nature. Well, that's a contradiction in terms, isn't it? If it's nuclear, it's not conventional, is it? Use nukes is to destroy their own country immediately. Well, they're doing that now, aren't they? I mean, if they want to take Ukraine, they're flattening it. Well, what are they actually going to win if the Russians win? But the way it's going, it doesn't look like they're going to be honest. I mean, everybody was fearing this great Russian military, and it's looking like it's grossly overestimated. And I think I read or heard somewhere, probably from more than one source, that they thought it would be a 48-hour or 72-hour thing. They go in, it'd be all over. That's why logistically they didn't plan to stay more than a couple of days. That's why they're running out of food and fuel. Localized and conventional in nature. Well, maybe. But if they start using tactical nuclear weapons, there's probably going to be radioactive clouds drifting over NATO countries, and they really can't have that, can they? So it'll probably be on for one and all if that happens. It's not an ideology, it's a regime. Well, Putin, I think, just wants to get the Russia back to the way it was when it was the Soviet Union, because once the Soviet Union collapsed, you got all those little states all around the edge that have become independent states, and Ukraine's one of them. And Russia and Putin just wants to take them all back, I think, before he drops off the perch or he has to give it up. He wants to get Russia back as strong as it was, but it's backfired, I think, significantly. They might use chemical weapons. I think it's interesting that the weaker the Russians look, and the more poorly they appear to be doing, the stronger the language from the West is getting. When it all kicked off, they're all backing away. Boris and Biden, they're all backing away, all tiptoeing away, got their fluffy carpet slippers on. As the Russians seem to be doing worse and worse and worse and worse, and seem to be initially certainly tactically incompetent, then they're thinking, well, actually these guys are not much to worry about at all, So yeah, we'll give them weapons. Yeah, what's the worst? We could take these guys. Come on, if you think you're hard enough. That sort of. I'm getting that sort of vibe. Yeah. Well, yeah. If it went beyond tactical, then I'm glad I don't work in London anymore. That's for sure. Although I do have family over there still. I have family in London and Manchester and Suffolk, Essex actually. Yeah, Colchester, I think. I really wouldn't know, mate. The Russo-centric grand chessboard model. Yeah. Well, it's not gonna. It's not gonna happen, is it? What I think would be really funny would be if they not only kicked them out of the Donbass, but they kicked them out of Crimea as well. So they were actually worse off at the end of it. That might settle everybody down for the next 10 years. But I think it's interesting that some of these, Finland, is it, and Sweden, have always been traditionally neutral, now talking about showing some interest in joining NATO. But I think Jeremy Corbyn wanted to disband NATO? What a nutcase. Thank goodness he didn't get in as PM of the UK. And his brother's just as nuts as well. He has appeared on the Miles Johnson channel a couple of times. And he was saying, it's going to be a Maunder minimum. We could be heading towards a new ice age. There's going to be zero sunspot activity. And I've been looking at the solar weather recently, and it's really ramping up. We're getting quite a lot of spots. The solar flux is well up. And the shortwave radio propagation for the radio hams is all coming back. You can talk around the world on 10 watts. They're dragging the Russians down. Yeah, well... Yeah, they've never had a huge economy, though, Russia, have they? So how far down can you drag them? although they're going to be really on their uppers if everyone stops buying the oil and gas, and yeah, what would happen if they were actually painted into a corner? Who knows? If there were riots in the streets. But I mean, yeah, if that happened and they removed Putin, what would happen then? Okay, sorry. Bad idea. Yeah, we'll just backtrack on that. We'll write out a check for all the damaged buildings, and we'll call it a day. A ceasefire with Russia holding a land bridge to the Crimea. Yeah, that'd be a disaster for Ukraine if that happens. Be another frozen conflict, much the same as in Georgia. Yeah, I'm not really clued up on that, to be honest. Clued up enough to comment on it, really. Who was being fed by the NATO countries during the Cold War? Ukraine and co. Ukraine was actually a nuclear-armed country, but it was nuclear-armed by Russia, and it had some. That's why it's got a Russian aircraft in their air force. And I could sort of vaguely remember hearing something. I only heard it once, and I don't know whether it was true, and it might have been stomped on fairly quickly. But I thought that there was some sort of deal done years ago between America and Ukraine, where the Americans said to Ukraine, if you disarm, get rid of all your nuclear weapons and all this sort of stuff, if you need defending, we'll defend you. And they did. They sold all the stuff back to Russia, all the bombers, the long-range bombers, all the nuclear missiles and everything else. They just gave it all back to Russia, or sold. Actually, yeah, they gave it all back to Russia in lieu of debt. That's right. They wrote off a lot of national debt they had with Russia by giving them their nuclear strike force and all their nuclear weapons. I think Ukraine will win. I mean, they're fighting for their homeland, aren't they? And it looks like they're not. They've got no intention of giving up. And the impression you get from the Western media is that the Russians are not. That their heart is not really in the fight. That's the impression you get. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. It certainly seems like there's a hell of a battle going on in the east at the moment. So, but there's another YouTube channel I was watching yesterday, Jeff Taylor, and he was saying that probably 2 or 3 days ago, a chemical plant north of Moscow, so deep inside Russia, blew up. And on the same day, a missile manufacturing plant north of Moscow blew up. And then there was a fuel, I think it was a fuel plant, blew up the day before yesterday, a civilian one, and a military fuel plant blew up today. So I think there are some Ukrainians living in Russia that are sort of going to be carrying out actions actually within Russia as well. It's not on the news though, is it? We're not hearing that on the mainstream news. So I wonder if that's fact. I am surprised that because of the sort of planes that Ukraine has got, I think they're Su-27s, they have the range and the speed to be able to fly from Ukraine to Moscow, flatten the Kremlin, and then fly back to Ukraine in under 2 hours. And because they're Russian aircraft, I'm sure the West would tip them off as to where all the missile sites were and all the radars were. And if any of the Russian population saw them, they would think they were just Russian aircraft, either going to or coming from Ukraine. They'd think they were friendly aircraft. So I'm really surprised that hasn't happened. I think if they were trying to fight the Brits or in Europe, that would have happened by now. Yeah, special ops is all well and good. As long as if they're captured, you can't You can't prove their country of origin because that would be World War III. I mean, if the SAS were doing that, the British SAS, and they got captured, yeah, that would open a real can of worms, I reckon. The Ukrainian missile strike that hit the fuel processing plant a couple of days ago. Ah, okay. So they're actually firing missiles from Ukraine. I thought it was interesting as well that apparently there was a lot of the Russian planes were firing their missiles, long-range missiles, from outside of Ukraine while they were still over Russia. So they're the Ukrainian air defence is obviously not something to be underestimated. If they're frightened to go into the Ukrainian airspace, if that's true. Have the Aussies taken consignment of their nukes yet? Nah. I don't know who deals with the defence in this country, but they are completely bloody clueless. I mean, they were going to buy submarines off the French, and then they were going to get them. These are conventional submarines, diesel-powered, diesel-electric submarines. They were going to buy them off the French, and they were going to get them kitted out by the Americans. And I thought, this has got disaster written all over it. I mean, the Americans and the British are perfectly capable of just building submarines. The off the shelf. The Americans make modular submarines. They can make them in very short order, and they're perfectly good submarines. Yeah, but the Aussies were going to buy nuclear-powered, conventionally armed submarines, and I think really to have a realistic nuclear deterrent like the UK, you really need at least one of those big boomer subs with all the big ICBMs on it. You just plant it anywhere. That's a real nuclear deterrent. Having a nuclear-powered submarine that's conventionally armed, I don't think is. Yeah, I don't think that's too much of a leap, to be perfectly honest. They do have concerns about the nuclear waste. And the other thing was, too, that they were a bit concerned that a lot of countries won't allow visits from nuclear-powered vessels. So they had that in mind as well. But in the end, they've sort of decided, I think, to buy British or American submarines. But yeah, if they buy the American ones, they'll probably be a few years away from actually getting the subs. Yeah, you only need... that's true. I think England's got 4. Vanguard, are they? Vanguard-class submarines, the big nuclear boomers. It carries 16 nuclear missiles. Each one's got 8 independently targetable nuclear warheads. So you only need one of those subs, really. You could destroy a country with one of those subs. But they only keep one at sea, I think. They sort of rotate them round, but I think they only keep one of them at sea at any given time. Because of the cost cutting. You'll probably find that will change. What is New Zealand's problem? I've got no idea. New Zealand, contrary to popular belief, is not a state of Australia. I think there was talk about making it at some point, but it's a completely independent sovereign country, New Zealand. So all I know about New Zealand is that they can't pronounce fish and chips. They call it fish and chips. Yeah, there has to be... there's normally... The UK normally has one of those subs out on patrol at all times. One, yeah. Well, you only need one. If it's got 16 intercontinental ballistic missiles, each one of those 16 missiles has got 8 independently targetable nuclear warheads. The MIRVs... they fly at something like 18,000 miles an hour. They're ridiculously fast, very difficult to intercept. If you've got one of those submarines, that's a realistic nuclear deterrent, I think. You only need one. Only need one at sea at any given time. Long live the Cairns UK Union. Yeah, I don't know quite what that is. I think Canada's part of the Five Eyes, isn't it? The Five Eyes intelligence gathering, the surveillance network. Is that America, UK, Canada, Australia, probably New Zealand? But I can't say I've heard of Kanzuk. All right, guys. Well, I think I'm running a little bit dry on stuff to talk about here. There's only two of you there. I'm amazed that I've managed to get this working at all. I don't know if I'm going to be able to repeat this. I've probably been going on for so long I've forgotten how to do it. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. They were going to cut it to 2. But it's been with the West for a very long time. It's been cutting back on the militaries. You know, the Air Force, the Navy, the Army. It's all been cut back because they thought the Cold War was over, the threat had gone. This is a real wake-up call for everybody. So now everybody is going to start ramping up their militaries, and they're going to start getting more realistic military defences. Australia is going to get a missile defence system because the Chinese have just got some sort of deal with East Timor, I think it is. It's only a couple of thousand k's off the coast of northeast Queensland. And they're they're saying that if the Chinese build a military base there, then it's upsetting the balance in the area and all this sort of stuff. And suddenly they're starting to think about, well, there are real threats out there, and maybe we should do something about it and spend some money on it instead of cutting money here, there, and everywhere, and cutting everything back, paring everything back to the bare minimum. But I mean, Australia's only got token forces anyway. I mean, the Chinese could take this country in 2 days, probably. Yeah, well, when this when this Ukraine thing kicked off, I thought, well, I wonder where I could. I'm in Western Australia. I thought, where could I pick up a Russian flag? I need to get down to Fremantle and welcome my liberators. Well, yeah, we'll get through. I'd be the guy. From Dad's Army with the raincoat and the trilby, selling the chocolates and the nylons. That'd be me. As much as I'd love to be at the front with our plucky chaps. I'm far too old for that, fortunately. If there was a war, I wouldn't get called up. Canada, Australia, New Zealand and UK without America. No, definitely definitely America is part of Five Eyes. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that's the Five Eyes. Yeah. I mean, if you look at Menwith Hill, Pine Gap, those sort of places, that's all part of something called Echelon. That's all part of the Five Eyes security arrangement. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point actually. Yeah, more of an Uncle Arthur. I think you're probably right. Well, either way, I wouldn't be up to my waist in mud and blood and bullets. So either one would be fine with me. Yeah, he means the cat. Yeah, I'm not really up on that, to be honest. America should be broken up and absorbed into Canada. Yeah, to be honest, I don't think Canada will want it. Yeah, I'll Google that a little bit later on. It's like no one's going to invade England, the feedback I'm getting from my family over there is it's in such a bloody mess over there. It's overcrowded. You can't drive anywhere. You can't park anywhere. No one would want it. You got all these boats coming across the channel. If what I'm seeing on the on YouTube is to be believed, so yeah, who would want responsibility for that lot? All right, guys. I don't know how long we've been going. Oh, it's a bit over an hour. Hour and 10 minutes. Just coming up to an hour and 10 minutes. So yeah, I've still got the warning banner up telling me please check the video resolution. The current resolution is wrong. I'll change that. But it's dropped the banner about it's not getting enough streaming information or something. So I take it that the banner has remained firm and the audio's been okay. Yeah, the trouble is it's unrecoverable. I think the UK. It's I could see this happening. In the 90s, I used to be in the super yacht business. So I'd fly out of the UK and go and work in France and Spain and Holland and those sort of places. And I used to dread going back to the UK. Dread it. And I thought, that's it, I've got to get out of here. I was sitting in the south of France one day, in Cannes, I think it was. And I was looking out and looking at the beach and the sea, and I looked at the newspaper, and of course, gibberish, can't read it. Watching television, yeah, gibberish. And I thought, what would look and feel a lot like this, but have an English culture? And I thought, well, it's got to be Australia. So I phoned up the Australian High Commission and had a chat with them, and then came out here in 1995. Yeah, okay. Oh, it's good to know. Thanks for letting me know, guys. Appreciate you taking the time to be involved with this and let me help me out with it and have a bit of fun. Blighty's not finished. It's just turning up. Oh, just tuning up. Yeah, well, more like it's turning up at the edges. I've heard they're building 40-odd story blocks of flats there now. When I lived there, it was only 22 stories. I think it was a pretty big one. And I was looking at one of the YouTube channels the other day, and I thought, well, okay, build a 42-story block of flats in Ilford. I don't know if either of you know Ilford, but it's a pretty high, densely populated area anyway, and they're going to build 2 of these. And I thought, where are they going to put all the cars? For all the people, how many flats are going to be in a 42-story block of flats? Mum and dad's probably going to have a car. The teenage kids are probably going to have cars. They're all going to be in the shopping centre on Saturday. It's going to be an absolute nightmare. Oh, yeah, well, thanks for that. Thank you for those kind words, bringing quality to Oz. Yeah, please do. We don't... Australia said, yeah, please do. We don't have enough people as it is. Well, fortunately, I was able to squeak in. Although the population is rising quite rapidly. I think it's might be 25 million now. Can you imagine 25 million people living in an area about the size of the whole of Western Europe? It's a really big country, Australia. I've driven across it. I set off on about 6 o'clock Monday morning, and I got to the other side, and I wasn't hanging around. I got to the other side of the country about 4 o'clock Friday afternoon. All right, well, I think we'll leave it there, guys. Thank you very much indeed for your participation, and I'll see how I'll see if I can replicate this at some point. I'll see if I can get a theme going, maybe, because I sort of just tried this just to see if I could get it working. I didn't really know what I was going to talk about, or whether I'd be talking for a minute or 2 minutes or 10 minutes, or whether it would work at all. So it's been really good. So thank you very much indeed. Have fun if at all possible, and I'll catch you around. All I've got to do is find the there it is, end stream button. Cheers, guys.